Schechter gave me a passion for Jewish life because it was with my peers. It made it cool and exciting and something that I wasn't doing at home and something that really made it relevant to me.
When you're at Schechter, that's sort of your whole world. And then you go out into the real world and they're, having a group of people that know you well, that you feel comfortable with, that's so important.
A really wonderful way to learn, where you're learning two very distinct topics, and one of them's values-based in terms of the Judaic studies we were doing, and then there's secular studies, and then sort of the Hebrew and the cultural studies about Israel and so on.
There are so few places in life where they'll truly encourage you to really go out on a limb and take a chance and try something new. For me, that was Schechter in a nutshell over the course of 9 years.
Wow, that came really well.
It's so interesting to see the evolution of the posters.
I just think it's so funny that I put stars on my name. So it was Amit was Kurt, and Mike Jabawi was one of the other siblings. And remember, we actually thought we were siblings.
Oh, Laura Crawford! Oh, how are you?
How are you, Laura? How's it going?
So good to see
Oh, so
you.
good to see you too.
Oh my God, oh wow.
It's
We're
been
going
a
back
long
like 100 years at all, at least.
I remember being 5 years old and my mom said to me, do you want to stay in public school or do you want to go to Schechter? And I think her sending me to Schechter was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it taught me all of the Jewish background and knowledge that she couldn't teach me, that I now carry into my work every day. I am now the executive director of an organization called the Jewish Arts Collaborative, which I like to say is Boston's one-stop shop for Jewish arts and culture.
The great thing about Laura is that she's an optimist, she's energetic, and she's really smart. And she is one of those leaders who, and I watch her pretty closely because she's one of those leaders who make the people around her better.
I see the arts as critical to the current generation and the younger generation because it helps them understand how Jewish life can be meaningful to themselves and to their own families.
She is somebody who inspires, and I think that she does that in part because she's received that from others.
I am thankful every day of the education I got at Schechter, both because it was a diverse, great education, but also because I was able to spend so much of my time in the art room with Joy and other people who inspired me and taught me the tools I needed to express myself.
You can turn the letters into something else, but you can still tell that it's a letter.
I think I was born to be an artistic person, and the lessons I learned at Schechter impact everything I do.
I try to live my life consistent with the values that our parents brought us up with that were reinforced at Schechter. Be a decent person and to live consistent with your values. That was always reinforced in everything that we did, and it created a really nice cohesive community back then. It taught me to appreciate community. Solomon Schechter is a pretty decently established school. When I started in first grade, there was a large brick structure, which was the synagogue and the community hall and so on. There was a White House that the temple owned next door, which had administration, and we would play on the play field between the two buildings. While we were the first 7th grade and the first 8th grade in the school, with 5 kids in each of those classes. The teachers were very committed and knew what they were doing. Nobody else did. Everybody was making it up on the fly. The Hebrew language training was pretty spectacular at the time. A couple of teachers, especially early on, Dina Mickley, made a huge impact on me and I think all of our classmates. Both my parents had involvement, My dad in particular served as the president of the school for a number of years, and I think it was something that he felt was really important for the community and for our family as well.
I was new to the school, and I sat down next to this young woman who became my best friend, and the two of us ended up noticing some of the boys across the room, and one of them was Michael Pucker. Michael was a very good student, very studious, very serious. He is devoted to inspiring others the way he was inspired, and he has been philanthropic in that way to ensure that the school continues for years and years to come.
I was in Schechter from K through 8, absolutely loved it, made lifelong friends there who are still some of my best friends to this day. Above all else, Schechter gave you a great education, gave you a really good work ethic, but more than anything, Schechter was a community, and everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew everyone's family. And I don't think I really appreciated how special that was until later on in life. Schechter really helped foster a very special community of people who were supportive and sort of made you think that you could do anything you wanted. I'll never forget when we went to Israel. There was nothing like going with your classmates, especially at that age, and to see it all together after learning about it in the classroom all these years. It was an amazing experience, and we did it towards the end of 8th grade when everyone was getting nostalgic and sad about their time coming to an end. I work in politics. I've worked in politics for about the last 5 years. I have worked most recently and still now for Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, working on the political and campaign side on behalf of a super PAC that he runs.
Well, Alex had many duties. For a long time, he was my body guy. That doesn't mean what it sounds like. It means he accompanied wherever I went, made sure I was on time, made sure I met all the right people.
And I remember when I told my parents about it, they said, "You're going to be his bodyguard?" And I said, "No, I'm 5'8" and really not all that threatening. I'm not going to be his bodyguard.
You know, you meet people who are really talented. Some have great personalities, some have really good minds. Very few have both, and Alex is one of those. And in addition to his great mind and his great personality, he has a good neshama. For those of you who don't know Yiddish, and I didn't know any until I ran for office, that means a good soul.
I do credit Schechter with helping me get my start in politics. I decided to run for treasurer, and I pulled it off and managed to win as a 7th grader with a student council that was all 8th graders. And the next year I ran for president, was elected by my classmates again, and it really, I credit that entirely with helping me catch the political bug. And all these years later, 13, 14 years later, I'm doing it full time now for my career.
Eretz Yisrael sheli yafa v'gam porachat. I'm Debbie Bonin, and I graduated from Schechter in the class of '89. I was there from kindergarten through 8th grade, and I made a lot of friends, many of whom I'm still in touch with now. That was my first community. It was my first home away from home in a way, and we had fun times. We, in school and class trips, and when we see each other now, even if we haven't seen each other in a long time, it often feels very comfortable and very natural. I work at Bronx Lebanon Hospital in the South Bronx. We serve the community there. It's sort of an underserved community. I provide women's health care for pregnant and non-pregnant women. I enjoy working with women and empowering them and educating them. Working especially with an underserved population requires a lot of compassion, really sort of treating everybody with dignity. And I think those are values that we learned at Schechter. Those are Jewish values. Those are, we learned that every human being is created in the image of God, B'Tselem Elohim.
Debbie has had a tremendous impact on a number of areas in the synagogue. She is an amazing thought partner for me, just thinking through various challenges, whether it comes to questions about a certain prayer, how do we do it, we want to make a change, how do we think about it, or bigger issues in the Jewish community. Debbie is always there for support, advice, and for help. She was one of the founding members of Minyan Kolenu, a minyan that meets here in the synagogue that is an integral part of our synagogue. For many people, her voice is now intimately connected with the words of the High Holiday Machzor, and her thoughts, her ideas of how to portray those words are now part of our experience, part of who we are and what we try to be.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam.
About 5 years ago, I started a Hanukkah celebration at the Museum of Fine Arts. And I will never forget, Barry Schrage, the president of CJP, looked at me that very first night and he said, "Laura, this is a game changer." And I think what he meant was it had never been thought of in our community as publicly celebrating Hanukkah or a Jewish celebration on that scale.
My training at Schechter really gave me a lot of Jewish ritual skills. A few years after I moved to Manhattan, some friends of mine started a minyan called Kihilat Hadar. It's an independent minyan that is traditional and egalitarian and really sort of inspired the creation of a lot of other independent minyanim around the country. So I started off as a member there and then became involved in the leadership, both in running the minyan and also leading services and reading Torah and participating there.
It was me and a guy named Danny Miller and Jeffrey Schwaber. I was going to continue to keep kosher, and I succumbed to a Big Mac at some point, you know, when I was 12. And Jeffrey was from a modern Orthodox family, and we take the bus together to school in the morning. And one day, he was about 6 months older than me, so he'd had his bar mitzvah, so it was before mine. He looked at me and he said, "Was it important to you to keep kosher?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Is it important to you to eat a Big Mac?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay, that's all I have to say." And the next day, I kept kosher. I kept kosher the rest of my life. And it's one of the few moments in my life where I can point to a specific, 2-minute conversation or 5-minute conversation that actually changed the course of my life in a very positive way.
Michael, we have a surprise for you tonight. Go ahead.
Michael, it's Jeff Schwaber from Solomon Schechter, grades 1 through 8. We were best friends all that time, and I want to wish you mazel tov and congratulations on this honor.
My first response when Schechter contacted me about being an honoree was oh God, I hope I'm not that old now that...
I can say with pride that Schechter gave me the basis for everything I do now. It means the world to me every day to know Hebrew and Tanakh and the background of our people in a way that influences everything else I do has been so significant to me.
Schechter is an important part of my life and our family's life, and it's important for the community to continue to support them. If we lose day schools, we actually lose a really important part of us and part of our tradition.
I went to Gann Academy, to the new Jewish high school for high school, and the chief, if maybe only reason why I did that, was because to me it felt like a continuation of Schechter.
I grew up going to Schechter in Newton. My husband went to a Schechter school. We chose to give both of our kids a Schechter education, and that's been a great decision, and the Schechter tradition continues.